So I'm joined by three coaches who believe in, 11 on 11 football, who believe in ball control, and we just want to have some conversations. So our first coach, Coach Rodriguez, introduce yourself to everybody, please.
Hey, thanks for having us on. My name is Tony Rodriquez. I'm a high school football coach down here in Tampa, Florida, and I'm also part of the Three Face Football and the Mesh Point podcast.
Awesome. And we're also joined by Coach Starin. Coach Starin.
Hey, Coach Clemens. It's great meeting you today. It's great being on. My name is Jason Starin. I'm the office coordinator at Wagner High School in San Antonio, Texas.
Awesome. And we're thanks. It's great to have you. I apologize. My brain's all out of whack. I need to, have a little bit more to just,
You've been
relax.
Quarantined, Coach.
Exactly.
That's that social distancing, man.
Exactly. And then we are joined by one more coach. Coach, would you introduce yourself, please?
My name is Don Watt. I'm the head football coach at Sahuarita High School, Sahuarita, Arizona, about 30 minutes south of Tucson.
30 minutes south of Tucson. I've never been west, Coach. I've never been west of, like, East Texas, Oklahoma area. That's as far west as I've ever gone. But I've been everywhere east. And there's been like 3 different occasions where I've almost ended up in Arizona working. And for one reason or another, it's never happened. Coach, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. I was sitting back, and I've actually been thinking about this for a long time. You know how it is when you're not a head coach. You always think about things that you're going to do differently the next time you get an opportunity, or for some people, the first time you get an opportunity. And so I was thinking back, I was thinking about it, and at one point in my head, I said, you know what? The next time I get an opportunity to run the show, I'm just not punting anymore. I'm just, that's just not going to be a part of what I do. And I actually spoke about it with a few colleagues and fellow coaches and people that I trusted, and they all kind of gave me that eye, and I'm like, but you got to understand where I'm coming from with this thing. When we think about offense, many times we think about offense in a 3-down capacity. And many people do. The overwhelming majority of people think about football in a 3-down capacity. First, second, third down. If you don't get it on third down, you're punting or you're kicking. And I just always thought to myself, well, I know my offense averages more than 3 yards a play, which means that if I do that over 4 plays, that should easily equal a first down. It seems like basic math to me. So my first question for you guys is, why don't we see more triple option or for lack of a better term, 3-phase football teams? Why don't we see more of those teams going forward on 4th down?
I guess I'll start. I mean, I think it just kind of fits into our philosophy of controlling the clock, winning the battle of field position. And there's statistics out there that show, the further you can pin a team back, or the further that they got to travel to score, their odds reduce, right? I used to do special teams, and that was one of the statistics we would focus on, is trying to pin them as far back and flip the field, essentially is what I'm trying to say, right? And pin them deep and reduce their chance of scoring. So that would be my opinion on that. Somebody else want to say something?
Yeah, Coach Sharon, what are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I think the better triple option teams do. I don't have the data on the high school teams, but 2018 Army was like 86% on 4th down, and they had 31 attempts. I looked that up earlier today. They had 31 attempts in 2018, 86%. That's insane. Now, I didn't look up how far they had to go. I don't know if it was 4th and 6. I know it was 4th and 3. And then this year, Harding, a really good Division II team, they were number 1 in Division II. They had 20 out of 24 attempts. They converted 18, so they were like 75%. And then again this year, you had Navy. They had 34 attempts, which was about as high as it gets in Division I football, and they were 76% completing. Converting. So I think that actually, and it probably has a lot to do with a down and distance situation. But I think Coach Rodriguez, I think Tony is a good point. You got to flip the field. And then another thing, I think maybe we're conservative by nature. So if we're not going for it, I think it's just because that's probably a constant. Triple option folks were somewhat conservative by nature. At least I am. Maybe not the next guy.
Coach Watt, what do you think?
A riverboat gambler, my friend. I'm going for it on fourth down. And if I'm not going for it on fourth down, I'm going to give you something different to look at if I'm going for it on fourth down. I do the same thing with 2-point conversions. I'm going for 2 all the time. But
so this is etched into your game plan. When you go into a game, you know that you've got four downs to make a first down. That's what's understood. Everybody on the team.
I would say it's etched into our culture. We expect to go for it on fourth down, and we expect to go for it too all the time.
Are there any times where you don't go for it on fourth down?
Let's say if I'm fourth down and 99, that's probably not a good situation. Maybe if for some reason my right arm falls off, that'd be another good one. I don't know. It's feel. It's feel, and I'm sure some of my competitors will watch this too if it ends up on certain venues. But there's really not. I mean, you know how Coach Rodriguez just talked about how you want to pin folks down in there because the percentage, depending on where you pin them, there's a percentage on where you pin them if they'll score based upon where they start their drive.
Mm-hmm.
So and then again, a lot of that too is I'm looking at my defensive coordinator, and I'm asking him, "How do you feel? How do you feel if we go for it right here and we don't get it? You think your defense can stop them?" And if he says no, then we might punt it. But it's feel. But I don't know. I'm just a gambler, man. I like going to work on it. And if we end up losing a football game because of something that I did, I'm just trash because of that. But at least you can put the blame on me. But we're going for it. But I'm going to put pressure on you as a defensive coach or an offensive coach, whichever way it goes. It's you need to go into that football game on Friday night knowing that we got 4 downs to make a first down. We don't have 3 downs to make a first down.
And that's what I want to get back to, Coach. Coach Starin, you were talking about some of the statistics from different programs, different college programs. But even as you said those numbers, I was thinking to myself, like, 34 times they went for it on fourth down, but that's 34 times out of how many fourth downs throughout a season. I mean, I think about just one game. If you have, anywhere between, 10 and 15 possessions, and you only score on 3 or 4 of those possessions, that means that 12 times you punted or you did something different on fourth down. So, why do you think more guys don't just look at their offense and go, listen, we have an offense that is efficient. We have an offense that is predicated on, that quote unquote 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and we're just waiting for somebody to make that mistake and break out. And see more programs that are like that go for it because they know that that's just almost an elementary thing when you have 4 downs.
That's funny, right? Because when we're presenting this offense to new coaches and to new kids, we talk about, we'll say, hey, what's 3 times 4? And the kids will say 12. We'll say, no, it's a first down, right? Mm-hmm. Right? Because we say that. And I think it is because it's some weird societal norm that says you only got 3 downs to get it done. And I'm wondering if when I'm head coach, I'm not a head coach, am I going to have the guts to do it? And it's interesting, you're right, because if you talk about 34 attempts, they had a lot more fourth downs than that. But I think it comes back to what you said in your mind, are you thinking that you have 4 downs to do this? The data for us, and overall we were 56% completion conversion on third down, but on 3rd and 3 we were 86%, right? So I think maybe, like you mentioned, if you have the mindset that you have 4 downs, you're probably more likely to go ahead and get it, because then that affects your first down play calling. So you brought up a really good point.
And so I want to go back to Coach Rodriguez, because you really talked about flipping the field. Is that just because that's what we've been taught to think about from the time we started playing football as little kids until we became more engulfed in the game as coaches?
I think it has to do, it's partly to do to that probably, but also you got to think, you want to prevent them from putting points on the board in general, not just scoring a touchdown. You start getting down there to the 30-yard line in high school. I mean, you're talking kids that can kick field goals, you know what I mean? So the further you can flip the field and prevent them from getting into scoring range, you're going to, give yourself a chance to win, I think, a little bit more. But just kind of to your point with what you're saying, though, I was talking with some of my buddies earlier today, and a lot of those guys within our, the type of football that we enjoy, man, it's kind of ingrained in us. We're going for it on fourth down, you know what I mean? But those guys would tell you that it probably depends on the field position, like where you're at in the field. So, like, if it's from the 50 in, fourth down comes up, you're probably going for it. You know what I mean? So the field position has something to do with it, I would say, as well. And then I agree with Don about the feel that you got to have. If your kids are over there saying, "Hey, let's go, let's run some zone dive, baby, let's go," I mean, you got to go with them. You know what I mean? So it's I agree with those 2 points.
How much of it do you look at it and you say this is cultural? Meaning we've ingrained this into the program versus this is just something we're going to try to do. I think that a lot of times what we end up with when we think about going for it on fourth down is more of the risk than the reward. For instance, we talk about flipping the field all the time, but let's be real about it. There are not a lot of really great punters. So when we think about flipping the field, if you're on a 35-yard line and it's 4th and 1, and you're like, okay, well, we've got to flip the field, and you only get the ball to the 45-yard line, did you really flip the field? So, like, what's the risk versus the reward? Okay, they're going to have to score from the 35 in, or they're going to have to score from the 45 in. You just gave them, 20 yards. You know what I'm saying? In order to be able to score 20 more yards doesn't necessarily, to me, seem to be able to make the difference in stopping a team. I think a lot of times teams will bite themselves in the foot because they believe the same thing, which is we only have 3 downs. But if the mindset, if the entire culture was changed, would you ever have kids on the sideline who didn't think they were going for it on fourth down?
I don't want to steal all the thunder here, but, I think it has to do with putting the emphasis on special teams as well. I mean, I know guys that, only practice special teams on Thursday for like 10 minutes, you know what I mean? So you gotta put an emphasis. If you're not, getting the dividend out of your special teams, it's probably, I think you got to look back at your practice and identifying those kids that can that possess the skills to punt and snap and things like that, and you have to develop that stuff. It ain't all about 7-on-7. You know what I mean? You got to work snappers, holders, kickers, punters. I mean, and so those are those little things that help you get over the hump and get into the playoffs and get deep in the playoffs. I think the better you are on special teams. So I just want to play devil's advocate a little bit on that end.
No, play devil's advocate, but I think you just said something very interesting. If we are here and the emphasis in a lot of programs is on the offense and on the defense and not on the special teams, then shouldn't we be giving less credence to the special teams on game day? And really like focusing the attention more on the things that we practice more often, which is the offense and the defense, right?
Well, I mean,
or who's
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'll go. So
go ahead, Coach.
yeah, so what's interesting is I'm a big believer. I don't know if it's like from the Art of War or where I got it from, but I'm a big believer in being able to. You can, whatever your strength is, I think you can improve your strength. I think you can go from like, let's say level X up to level Y, improving strengths before you can take like your weakness going from level X to level Y. And so you kind of bring up a good point. And I'm not a head coach, so I'm not going to make these decisions, but it is interesting. It's kind of like, you're right. The kids don't want to play special teams. You know, half the coaches don't want to coach them. You know, if you just embed in that culture when you first get there, let's freaking roll, man. Let's go for it. Because if you know your strengths, right? So you got a punter that only, he averages 12 yards a punt. You're like, what the hell? We only got 1 yard to go. We got LJ Butler. I don't want to throw kids' names around, but that dude's a badass. Let's hammer him up in there. So I'm kind of buying into it now. You know what I mean? Really am.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's an interesting thing. I want to come back to you, Coach Watt, because I want to move on. I know we're still trying to keep some time. Why do you think you don't see more coaches going for it on their extra point? Because it almost seems almost academic to me to go for it when it comes to an extra point. But we still don't see a lot of coaches doing that.
Hell, I don't know. Hell, might be afraid. I got no idea. Again, I'm a gambler. I'm going for it on 2 all the time, because if I make 2 of those, that creates an extra possession for you. All right. I mean, that's 4 points. You just can't come down the field and go kick a field goal and be up. We're going for it. It is a culture for us. Our kids relish. They relish in that stuff, and they want 2 points. Doesn't matter how we do it, through our traditional offense or through our, I'll just say, non-traditional offense. And why other people don't do it, heck, I don't know. Maybe they're just being conservative. I know there's a lot of times when I've looked back and went, probably should have gone for 1. No, we're staying with 2.
Question. So when did you come to the decision, because you are the head coach, so you are the decision maker here. When did you come to the decision that, we're no longer kicking field goals, we're no longer kicking extra points, we are always going to go for it on 2?
When I became a head coach.
So that was just what you knew you wanted to do the moment you became a head coach.
Well, you said something earlier with I think it had to do with, whenever I become a head coach, I want to do it this way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now I'm in that position. That's the way I'm going to do it. Don't care if that costs me my job. If I can go to sleep at night knowing that, hey, that's the way that I did it and everything's on my shoulders, then right on. We're going to go for 2. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a certain point. And I like Coach Starin. I'm originally from Texas, and my job sent me out here to Arizona. But there's a certain point when I refuse to go for 2. So we do have some kickers, and they'd like it when the score is elevated and they can go out there and kick. I'm not rubbing that score in your face. I'm like, if we're up 48-0, I'm not going for 2. There's a certain amount of I think that at the beginning of the football game, there's a certain amount of gamesmanship that you're playing with, and then there becomes a certain part of honor in the football game, honor in the sport, honor in your opponent. Jason, I must have read Art of War probably 14 times. There's a lot that goes into my thinking whenever we're playing a football game. So don't get me wrong. Even though we go for 2 all the time, there comes a certain point where I go, kick it. And if we miss it, then we're good to go. We're fine.
Hey, two points that came to my mind, Coach Clemens, while we were talking about this conversation was you ever seen like on the card, the playlist, you got the 2-point conversion chart of when to go for 2, when not to go for 2?
Yeah, it's the worst. I think it's the worst thing in football. The 2-point conversion chart, when to go for 2 and when not to go for 2, is predicated on avoiding risk. And to me, football is based off risk. So I don't understand how you could have a conversion chart that says, okay, well here it's safe to go for 2. And it's like, wait a minute, like, isn't the whole point to put the pressure on? So I look at it and I think that what Coach Watt said is very important. And a lot of times coaches don't do this when they have a chance to be the head coach. Head coaches, people a lot of times have a lot of ideas. Innovation is the enemy of tradition. And because of that, a lot of coaches will get their opportunity to be a head coach, and instead of embrace all of the things that they've thought about when they were an assistant coach, all of a sudden now they go back to all of the scary football things that they talked about they wouldn't do when they were an assistant. By the time they get a head coaching job, then they lose their head coaching job for whatever reason. A lot of times we understand that. A lot of times a head coach doesn't lose their job because they weren't a good head coach. They lost their job because they didn't win enough games. Or they didn't appease a certain clientele within that time. But imagine if you get an opportunity to be the head coach and you really and truly believe in something. Why wouldn't you take the opportunity to do it? I'll say for you, I know you're a triple guy. You get an opportunity to be the head coach. Are you running a spread?
Oh yeah, air raid RPOs.
Exactly. You're gonna do what you believe in. You're gonna do what you believe in. Coach Starin, I'm sure it's the same thing for you, correct? If you get an opportunity to be a head coach, you're not going to run some offense that you don't believe in.
Yeah, you're right, man. I mean, especially because the offense we choose is, and we throw the word culture around, but the offense we use, man, it's going to, that's really where it's going to start, because you get to give the best players the defense, and then, that's the same way we're going to lift weights. I mean, we're going to be selfless. So no, I couldn't imagine doing another offense. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
Exactly. So for me, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, unless I needed one more year for retirement or something like that. Maybe just one more year. But no, man, I ain't doing it.
No, I think it's interesting because we almost have all sides of the spectrum kind of taken. Coach Rodriguez is kind of on the conservative side. Coach Watt is definitely not. And you're in the middle. You're kind of like, no, I can see it this way. Oh, but I can also see it this way. So we kind of have a good, a good measure of everything.
Hey, I'm going to throw something at you. I'm going to throw something at you real quick.
Go ahead.
And this is nothing against Coach Rodriguez or Coach Starin, but I guarantee you, if Coach Rodriguez or Coach Starin were on our staff, they would love it. They would go like, oh, we're going for it, or we're going for 2. But if we were on Coach Rodriguez's staff and he was very conservative, we'd be like, Jason and I probably look at each other and like, dude, you gonna go for 2? And Jason would be like, let's go for 2. I don't know.
Well,
I'm forecasting.
There's a different level of pressure, right? There's a different level of pressure. So to be the assistant coach on a team, where they're going for 2 every time, or they're going for it on 4th down, there's really no pressure on you. The pressure falls on the head guy.
Yeah, I'll take that.
But then when you're the head guy and you're like, I want to get this right because I want to keep this head gig, there's a little bit more pressure. So it's interesting because I think that you could see Coach Rodriguez probably, go for it on 4th down more than your typical coach would go for it on 4th down. But I do believe there would still be a bit of trepidation, just because that's not the way in which things have been done.
Listen, this is how it's going to go down. I'm gonna keep the offense out there on 4th down. I'm gonna try to freeze them. Then I'm gonna bring the punt team on. Does that count? Does that count?
You know what? That's at least messing with their heads a little bit. I understand.
Hey, but I am a big fan of this XFL, man. The XFL with you score a touchdown, you got to go for 2, don't you?
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Love it. I love it, and I still don't. And I'm still. This is the funny part. They go for 2, but I don't understand why they don't always go for 3. Like to me, I'm like, I just don't understand why you don't take the numbers. Like the numbers make so much sense to me. Like when they brought in the rule in the NFL that they were going to move back the extra points, you saw the percentage of extra points made go down. They moved it back, but if you went for 2, they would put the ball back on the 2-yard line again. And I'm sitting here in my brain going, an NFL offense doesn't feel confident enough that they could get 2 yards on a regular basis. Remember, the only thing you have to have for a 2-point conversion to be worth it is you have to make 1 more than you miss. That's it. You just have to have the percentage go over 50%. And it's going to be worth it for you to do 2-point conversions. The problem is, I think a lot of times when we look at this, it's whether you're willing to commit to it full time, because that's the only way the statistics actually work out in your favor. If you're a sometimes in, sometimes out, it's never going to fully work in your favor, at least not the way it will. And I mean, you'll have teams that are successful at it. Look at Navy, and look at Army, and I think you were talking about Marion. Like they're having success with it, but imagine if they could take that 85% or that 70% and put it over all their 4th downs. How much would that change the game if every time 7 out of 10 times that you had a 4th down, you made a 1st down on it? Like every single time. That would be something very interesting. So I'm gonna get you guys out of here on this. I'm gonna start with Coach Starin. Coach Starin, if you right now, boom, you're the head coach, what are you doing offensively?
Offensively, we're straight double slot beer. We're like, try to do it like the Godfather Paul Johnson. That's exactly what we're trying to do.
Okay. So double slot straight veer. You know your offense. You know the maniacal, efficiency of your offense. Are you going for 4? Are you going for it on 4th down? Or are you still going to, kind of play it by ear and do it by feel?
No, listen, I work for a great head coach. Charles Bruce is a great head coach. He empowers me. He believes in the offense. But and no disrespect, I love him. But there were some times this year where I thought we could have got that 1 to that 2 yards, and it wasn't just about humming it up in there. We could have run rocket, could have done some things. Like I said earlier, the data says on 3rd and 3 or less, we are at 86%. I don't know if I'd be able to go for it every time, but if you make that commitment, right, that affects 1st, 2nd. There's a little less pressure on 3rd downs. And to be honest, as a matter of fact, and all my coaches will make fun of me, if we get in 3rd and 12, I'll joke with them, and I call from upstairs, and I'll joke with them, and I'll say, "Hey guys, we're just giving it up right here, and we're gonna run a zone dive. We won't even run a draw or screen, and sometimes we just pop it." So that actually kind of has helped develop my 3rd down, mentality. We don't try and get the 12, to be honest with you. We just run a play, some based on what's been working the night. So, no, I don't know if I'm going to be able to have the guts to subscribe to go for every fourth down. And I really do think analytics is a little more than that, right? It's about, your opponent, how you've been playing that year. It's about down and distance, time left on the clock. I mean, don't the Army say that every week they get a deal like this, like a notebook like this for every situation? And they have one guy looking at the notebook. So the guys at UConn said that they have an analytical company. So I think if you're going to do it, you might as well put some, if you're going to put money in the huddle, you better put money into an analytical company also. That's what I think. It's
interesting that you say that, because you know that you can actually get your analytics done through Huddle. There's I forget what it's called right now off the top of my head, but there's like there's a program where they put all the data, you put all of your data in, and it can spit out all of your situations and everything like that. You're right though. I mean, analytics is a lot more than just go for it on fourth down. But I'm looking at it from the raw basic nature of you average more than 3 yards a play. And if you average more than 3 yards a play, in theory, if you thought about your plays as I have 4 plays to make 10 yards, you should be able to do that on a pretty regular basis. Tony, same question to you. You are now anointed the head football coach of XYZ program. What are you doing?
I'm going to be an option-based offense for sure. And as far as whether to punt or not to punt, I wrote down 3 things I think I would kind of go by. One would be the field position. We would definitely practice special teams. That would be definitely something year-round that we would work just as much as we would on our offense and defense. I would develop those skilled players, the snappers, holders, punters, kickers, those kind of things, right? But it depends on the field position. I think I could go with something like one of the guys I mentioned earlier. Once you get to the 50, going working your percentages from there, going forward on fourth down. Use some other things like tempo to try to get that extra. If you're under 5 yards or under, try to get them on tempo or something like that. Also, I went to a practice one time over at USF, and they had an emphasis they were putting in on third down. Just practicing a whole period was emphasized on third down. Make it, just making everybody have more of a sense of urgency because it's third down. You know what I mean? And just really emphasizing, hey, third down, this is paid. We got to make it happen. And practicing all those scenarios, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 10, all those little, so you got a plan. Everybody's coming on the same page. And then what Coach Watt said, it's all dependent on the field. How do you feel? Your kids. How does your defensive coordinator feel? I think those are all a part of that decision. 2-point conversion wise, I think I'm going to take the points probably. We did use the chart. I know you don't like the chart, but we did use the chart last year a little bit. We always had a guy, hey, the chart after we scored a touchdown. Hey, the chart says go for 2. Hey, the chart says, you know what I mean? And I always laugh. But whenever we did, like the other team really wasn't expecting it, and, we would score. You know what I mean? But that kind of goes back to your point too, right? And probably Coach Watt's point, you know what I mean? So about why he uses it so much. But I know I'm a little bit all over the place, probably why I'll never be a head coach. But it's all good.
No, I mean, it's I think at the end of the day, you have to do what you feel comfortable with. You have to do what's going to make you feel the most confident when you go into a game. I think for me, when I look at my team, it really comes down to how much faith do I have in my offense? And I'm very honest with myself. Last year, the offense that we ran at Tucker High School, I would have been totally comfortable with us going, 4 downs to get a first down. 2 years ago, when I was the offensive coordinator at Lakeside High School, we're gonna have to punt this thing. depending upon where we are. It's just like we were outmanned, we were outskilled. I mean, we were playing 7A ball versus, you know, some of the best teams in Georgia, talent-wise. We just could not compete at that level. And so you have to be smart because you don't want to kill the spirit of your team. But if you have a team and you have a scheme, and your scheme, when you look at the numbers, says, hey man, every time, like, you stop us one time, cool. You're not going to stop us 4 times in a row. And I look at the numbers and I go, man, look, I get 6 yards on first down. That means I have 3 plays to get 4 yards. I'm getting 4 yards. Like, bottom line, I'm getting, like, even at Lakeside against, you know, some of the best teams in Georgia. You give me 3 plays to get 4 yards, I'm getting 4 yards. I'm gonna find a way to get 4 yards. But that's the mentality you have to go. I think it's interesting what you said about having the time to that you would actually take the opportunity to go for it on 4th down if you get to the 50 or whatever, right? That means that you have to, as a coordinator, you have to be able to flip a switch from I have 3 downs to make a first down to I have 4 downs to make a first down. And how does that change your play calling on 3rd down? Do you still in your brain think about it like 3rd down, I got to make a first down, or do you think about it like it's a second down, like it's another opportunity at 2nd down? So it really is a mentality change that you have to make. And I would be interested to know if somebody does that. Like, I would love to talk to that offensive coordinator and see how, like, do they have a different chart? Like, do they have a different play call sheet that they would bring in? Because I'm thinking in my head, like, I would probably have 2 different play call sheets if I knew that was the mandate from my head coach, that once we got to the 50, that was 4 down territory. I would have a different play call sheet, or maybe the opposite side of that play call sheet would be something different, so that I knew in my mind there was no more 1st down, 2nd down, 3rd down. It was 1st down, 2nd down, 3rd down, 4th down. So that would be really interesting to see.
You know, I think there's a lot to be said with the psychology of the football game, not just amongst adults, because, you know, we're on the sideline basically playing checkers or chess.
Chess.
We're playing freaking chess.
Yes.
And I want the defensive coordinator that's going to play us, who has been, you know, if we're like game 8, 9, whatever, I don't care, maybe even game one. And look, I know there's a very fine line between confidence and arrogance. And this comes from my old head football coach when I told him that I could do his job whenever I was in high school. Coach Starin knows what I'm talking about. Don't confuse my arrogance for confidence, or confidence for arrogance with this, but there is a certain psychology whenever it comes to us playing chess on the football field, that if I go for it on 4th down and I get it, super. I know the risk, I know the reward. I'm willing to take that. I'm willing to shoulder that. If I'm going for 2, which I am, I'll tell the entire world I'm going for 2. I want your kids to look at that scoreboard. Let's say you go down and you score at 7-0. I go down and score. Now it's 8-0. I want your kids to have to look at that scoreboard and know that it's 8-7, and you got to get a little bit more than what we do every single time. I don't know if that's the, you know, kind of looking at today's society, today's generation, but brother, I'm going for it. I'm going for it, and I think Coach Rodriguez had a good part when he said that, you know, depending on where you are on the football field. Coach Starin had a good portion as well when he said, hey, how good is our offense clicking? Can we get what we need to get? You know, a lot of that plays into my mindset, but I have that secondary or maybe even tertiary thing lined up where, look, if I have to go for it on 4th down, I'm going for it. If I am going to punt it, then I'm going to punt it a unique way, or it may be something totally different. But yeah, that's kind of what we do.
And that's awesome, and I appreciate it. I think that's a great place to stop. Coach Watt, Where can anybody find you on your social? Get your social out for us.
At Coach D Watt. That's D as in Delta, and last name phonetically is Whiskey Alpha Tango Tango, WATT.
At D Watt. Thank you, Coach. Coach, I'm sorry.
At Coach D Watt.
Coach D Watt. I apologize. At Coach D Watt. Obviously, if you're looking for some aggressive play calling, and some more of a new age thinking, Coach D Watt is definitely the person that you want to hit up and ask some questions. Coach Starin, give us your social.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, and that's about it, man. It's at Coach Starin, and the C and the S are capitalized, but I don't know if that really matters, right? So, and Starin is STARIN.
Appreciate it, Coach Starin. Thank you a lot for being here. Coach Rodriguez, you know what time it is. Give them all your spots.
Oh yeah, man. Hey, at 3Face Football on Twitter, and also check out at the Mesh Point. We've actually done a podcast with both these two guys. Go check them out. We probably need to get you on too one day, Coach.
Yeah, y'all. I'm only kind of sort of in your world, so y'all. I'm like a bastard child. They don't. Nobody wants to claim me. It's all good though. I like being in both worlds. It's a great way to be. So, again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. This is coaching, quarantine coaching conversations. I'm Gene Clemens. Thank you again. Until next time, I hope that everybody's out there being healthy. I hope everybody's out there being safe. I know that these are weird times for us, but remember, there are so many other places where they have it so much worse than we do, and they're struggling so much more. So if you have an opportunity, if you're somebody who prays, send a prayer out to those people. If you're just someone who sends out well wishes, send out well wishes for those people, and understand that although this sucks, like let's be real about it. Although this sucks, that we have an opportunity to be the example rather than to be the people that other countries look at and go, oh my gosh, that's awful. Let's be the example. Let's be the thing that makes this world. Let's be the mechanism that helps to make this world a better place, as opposed to being the mechanism that helps it turn into more chaos. And every one of us can do our part. And I hope that you guys get an opportunity to. So until next time, I want to thank my coaches for being here. Coach Watt, Coach Starin, Coach Rodriguez, thank you so much. This is a great conversation. Stay tuned. I may have dropped one of these tomorrow. We're supposed to be talking about the business of football, and so really get an opportunity to have a conversation about the business and being a coach in this business, and how much emphasis we should put on, what we make and our expertise. So make sure you look out for that. You can find me everywhere at Gene Clemens. Make sure you follow this YouTube channel at Coach Gene Clemens. Look at our X and O's to Joe's pods that we do. Anything that's involved with me, we're just trying to put out that information so that people can get better at their craft, so that guys can be better coaches and better mentors. So until then, everybody have a fantastic day. Thank you very much.